Hello and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so happy to see each and every single one of you tuning in either now live or watching the replay later. I have a question for you as you tune in. Would you rather success flow towards you, or would you rather have to force success to happen to you or for you? If you're thinking, that's a silly question, flow, of course, then you're tuning into the right commentary today. I will share the science of success, how to make space for abundance in your life, and why hyperplanning tactics actually restrict opportunities. And being the best actually makes it harder to be better or even likable. With that said, welcome to the More Impact Summer Series by Career Coffee Chat. I'm your host, Erin Urban, and this final episode in the series this year, and it's been incredibly fun discussing how to wire your brain for success. I want to send a shout out to say hi. Hi to all of you. Hi, Liz. She sent me a note while I was setting up this show. So I want to say hi as you tune in. And like I said, it's been so much fun discussing how to wire your brain for success and remove roadblocks that stand between you and your goals while allowing you to show up 100% as a person you aspire to be. Now, if you want to learn more about me, of course, you can discover more at coacherin.com. And if you enjoy the show and other live chats, feel free to subscribe to my YouTube channel or follow me on LinkedIn. And as you sign in today, again, be sure to say hi, ask your questions, don't be shy. This show is for you, my friends, and your insights, your questions, and your feedback really, really matters. So I want to say hi. Hi, Andre. Great to see you tuning in. And again, let me know where you're tuning in from around the world. Even if you're watching this show later as replay, of course, we'll be notified. We'll still see you and I'll still reach out to you and answer any questions that you have. In the meantime, while you're hopping in and saying hi, great to see you, David, tuning in from YouTube. By the way, we are live on LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook simultaneously. The magical wonders of technology. Let's dive in and chat about how to develop more flow in your life, the neuroscience way. We'll cover today the art of abundance thinking and why the heck that even matters, why hyperplanning restricts opportunities. That's right. That's for all my project managers in the house. And how to align your mindset with what you want in your life, as well as the science of present tense versus future tense. So some of you may be already aware of that. And if you aren't, guess what? You're going to find out something really fun today. So let's get started and let me know in the comments which one of these topics you want to know more about, or if there's something specific you wish to discover today around the art of abundance. And while you're thinking about that, I'll give you a brain twister. Abundance thinking is often the reverse of what we like to call habitual thinking or common thinking. In other words, how you usually think is backwards, making success flow away from you. Now, it's kind of like boating down a river. You can either sit back, relax, don't even put your hands on the oars, just let the current take you wherever you want to go and have absolutely no responsibility or direction in your life. We probably know someone just like that. Or you can roll like crazy, focused on all the dangers, which is creating a lot of stress. And what's interesting is whenever you hyper focus on all the dangers and all the threats, you're more likely to encounter them. Same thing in cycling. They tell you specifically when you're training to be a competitive racer, which I used to be, a retired competitive cyclist. And one of the things they tell you is don't look at the rock. Don't look at the hull. I'm like, what? That doesn't make any sense. I mean, don't we want to avoid it? You naturally steer towards what you're focused on. So keep that in mind. You're really not crazy focused on all the dangers, which naturally steers you toward those. And we'll talk about why in a little bit. Or are you setting your intention, your goal while you're rowing down the river, or rowing according to the river's fluctuations, knowing that it's not consistent always, it varies in the depths and flows? And are you focusing on leveraging the river's strength and its current to keep you clear of danger? Or the last one, you can be that person that's determined to row like heck upstream because either they didn't get their journey aligned in the first place, much less understand what the river is doing or where they're going. So when you consider these analogies, which one resonates with you? Are you the person who's like, yeah, I'm sitting back eating a sandwich, watching the clouds go by? Or are you rowing like crazy, focusing on all the dangers and threats? Or are you being really intentional, knowing that trying to be adaptable, focusing on the river where it's flowing for you versus the threats? Be aware of the threats, but not focusing on them. Or are you a person that's rowing upstream? Guess which one I used to be? I'll tell you in a minute. So there's an art to abundance, and there's a reason why I'm discussing this today. It's because a lot of us spend a great deal of energy creating more of what we don't want in our lives and our careers. And this is including me. Okay. Occasionally I think, wow, if I knew all this when I was 20 something, wouldn't that be great? Let's see. We have a comment here. Andre says, I'm from Texas and I work in retail commercial electricity, solar and battery backup systems, and other alternative energy solutions. I use daily affirmations to help me focus. That's awesome. And Andre will be covering about why those daily affirmations are actually powerful. They're not just a woo-woo. There is actually science behind them too. But yeah, I mean, if I knew, I mean, things about daily affirmations or any of this or actually believed. I mean, when I was a young professional, 20 something, I was saying, oh, daily affirmations, that's a bunch of bunk. You know, who does that? I mean, back then I was convinced that working super hard and trying to outperform everybody else, look at me, I'm great, was what you were supposed to do, like it was a competitive race or something. I was so busy thinking about myself, I didn't think about others. And I certainly wasn't making space in my life for abundance. I was filling it up with more crap to do. I was the person rowing like heck upstream. So recently, what's interesting is some habits we still need to revisit. I had done it again. I'm great at filling up space in my life with things that maybe don't necessarily serve where I want to go and how I want to show up in my life and what do I want to achieve. And let's illustrate this. So just to illustrate this point, last week I was looking for a funny video on YouTube and I saw one of Steve Harvey's motivational mini talks pop up. Now, let me know in the comments if you know about Steve Harvey other than some of his live show talks. He does these motivational mini talks that he films, usually either before or after he goes live on his shows. And you don't need to be religious. Steve Harvey is definitely a Christian man, but you don't have to be in the Christian faith to get and really resonate with a lot of his down-to-earth inspirational moments and what he has to share. And what's fascinating to me is whenever I hear him talk, one, he makes it super easy to understand, and two, there's a huge connection between what he shares and how our brain works. Now, he's talking about scripture in the Bible, and a lot about what he talks about, what he shares, resonates on the neuroscience level. One I landed on last week, he was talking about making space for the great things in your life. And his analogy was, are you making space for abundance? Are you making space to receive what you want? Or are you getting in the way of it? And his story was, he would come in, Mom, I want a new car. She goes, okay, son, but that car, that busted up, rusted out car still sitting up on blocks in the driveway. And he come in the next day, Mom, I'm going to get a new car. He's like, I don't understand. I'm saving up money for this new car. I'm going to get a new car. I have this positive attitude. I come in telling Mom, hey, I'm going to get a new car. And every day she shoots me down. She keeps telling me about this car, rusted out, sitting up on blocks in the driveway. So finally one day he asks, well, Mom, I'm trying to be like happy and positive here and come in with this, good perspective. And you keep shooting me down. What's going on? She goes, son, you need space to park that car. And your old beat up car is out there sitting up on blocks in the driveway. And then it clicked. He wasn't making room for what he wanted. So he went out, he moved, he paid, a couple bucks to a friend of his, moved that old rusted, beat up thing out of the driveway, cleaned it up, scrubbed it up, made it like nice and shiny. And the next week he bought himself a new car, pulled it up and parked it right in that spot. He had made room for what he wanted. Now, this analogy and this story really made me think. And let me know what resonates with you. It made me think about what's standing in the way of my abundance. And based on what I want, what's taking up that space? Because sometimes what's standing in the way is maybe our own thinking, about success, ourselves and our lives, or an actual thing. For some reason, we forget that you cannot achieve success if you don't see yourself as successful. Well, for one thing, if you don't see yourself as successful now, that's standing in the way. That's how our brain works, and we'll get into more about that in a minute too. Let's just say, for example, you want a promotion and you aren't making space for it because you keep doing the same things over and over again. You keep accepting the same projects that keep you here, and don't get visibility. You keep accepting maybe something that's not allowing you to have room for that promotion. And doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results is a definition of what? Yeah, insanity. So if you want something different, you have to do different things. Oh, yeah. Andre says, yeah, think good, look good, feel good, do good. I've listened to Steve Harvey, he says, but believe it or not, I've learned a lot of manifestations from Reverend Ike. Yeah, absolutely. It's really interesting because there's a lot of teachers out there. And when you look at the commonalities, a lot of that resonates tremendously with the science of success and how our brain works and how to leverage that tool. But it shows up in scripture. It's really interesting. So let's say another example. Let's say you're a coach or a consultant, and you want higher paying clients. I mean, who doesn't, right? We all, you're a coach or consultant. You're an entrepreneur at any level. You want higher paying clients. Chances are. Whenever I have this conversation with the coaches I coach, this is what I hear. Let me know if this resonates with you. I can't raise my rates. I'll lose my clients. Good. You can make space for the ones who actually pay you more. As long as those low paying clients are taking up room, you don't have space for the ones that will actually pay you more. The best thing and the best piece of advice actually came from Mary Kravitz, and I give her total kudos for this, was years ago I was super burned out, charging not enough for my coaching. And she said, Erin, raise your rates. And of course, I said the very same thing. Oh, lose clients. And she goes, well, fine. Have you ever considered that you could make at least the same money or maybe more and work less? And I was like, and make space for more abundance. Best advice I've ever gotten from any coach. And it worked like a charm. So let's say you want a new job, but you're afraid to let go of the old one. What do you think's happening? As long as you're mentally holding on to the job you have, you aren't making mental room and physical room for the new one. Now, I'm not advocating you quit your job and run off so you have space to get a new one. And sometimes that might be the answer. Again, are you making room for what you want in your life? This is very, very important, because if you're putting things in the way of receiving what you want and taking up that time and space with something else, you don't have room for what you want. And if you do receive it, then guess what? You're an overwhelmed, stressed out mess. So then that blessing becomes a stressing very, very quickly. So my question for you, my friends, is what's taking up space for you? What's standing in the way of what you want? You know what you want, but what is there in its place right now? All right. So that's something for you to think about. Now, the second part of abundance mindset is mindset alignment. Mindset alignment is extremely important. And I mentioned earlier that we think backwards. We think backwards oftentimes, and it's not intentional. It's how we're conditioned to think. When we see a threat, we focus on it to avoid it. And this is evolutionarily, right? Evolutionarily, we focus on threats. We tend to, which is great when we wore furs and had clubs and lived in caves. Okay, it was great then. However, it's not as useful in the modern context in all situations, because your brain decides to filter in or out information based on your focus. And in the modern world, instead of tigers and lions and bears and woolly mammoths and what have you, and things that go up in the night, we have emails from bosses and traffic and all these things, people at work that we don't get along with. And also they become threats in our own mental standpoint. Like we noodle on things a lot more than arguably than we used to when we lived in caves. I mean, our main focus was surviving, get something to eat and survive. That was it. Pretty simple. But if you're hyper focused on what you don't want, the threats, guess what you're more likely to experience? Knowing that your brain decides to filter out in or out information based on what you're focused on. Okay. Now, some of this they call it the law of attraction, and it's more like the law of filtering. I'm sure you've all heard of the law of attraction. You probably read the book, what have you. And there's a science behind it too, because if you want something, focus on what you want in the emotion of how you want to receive it, which is very important, and then let it go. Let it go. And the reason why the emotion of what you want to receive is so incredibly important is because how your brain stores information is based on emotional resonance. And if we're thinking about what we want, but we're thinking about it, we're stressed and anxious, then that's a part of that package. We're telling the brain, hey, this is what I want. But I also want to be all stressed out, anxious when I receive it. And that's not really what you want. So you want to think about how you want to feel when you want to receive the thing, and then let it go. Okay. And by the way, worrying about things and constantly rehashing it only complicates matters. Let it go and allow it to enter your life. Sort of like this train that's about to enter our show just for you because we have trains. And there's not a thing we can do about it. So we're going to keep going. And I can't stress how important it is to let things go. Don't think about it yet. It took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to learn this. Is that the train? Wait, there it is. Okay, train. And there it goes. Okay. Yeah, and now we let it go. So it took me a lot longer than I'd like to admit to learn how to focus on what I want in the emotional resonance that I want it to occur, and then let it go, because we tend to rehash over and over and over again. And I see this a lot in the high achievers I coach, particularly when it comes to making a mistake. We have to rehash that many times. And it's not useful. Why? Because you have clarity when you're setting that vision. If you want, you're basically you're setting a program in the brain is basically what you're doing. It's almost like, coding in the brain. You're coding a program into your brain. And when you do that, you say, okay, this is what I want. And we'll talk about the tense you want to put it in. This is the emotion of what I want, and then you let it go. But when you start dragging that out again and rehashing and muddling over it, worrying over it, then you start adding things and parameters and maybe detracting. It muddies it. So that's why letting it go is so very, very important. Let's see. Matt sent me a train. Yes, a train. Let's see. Andre says, as an engineer by profession, I'm more of a pest optimist. I love that. A pest optimist. I initially focus on the problem to understand it, and then I seek for solutions. Well, that's not necessarily being a pessimist. That's being curious. There's a huge difference between when you're seeking root cause to understand that's curiosity. And by the way, this is a nugget. When you're stressed out, so you're very stress level and you've got a lot on your plate and you maybe not even sure where to start to prioritize, your ability to be curious is locked out. When you're under stress, you cannot access the part of your brain that controls curiosity. Not very well. Because the two are completely different functions based on evolution. Again, we're back to how the caveman evolved, how we evolved as humans. At no time did the caveman go, I wonder how fast that tiger's running. No, they just ran away. They weren't curious about it. They got the heck out of Dodge. They didn't worry about it. So when we're stressed, we can't be curious. And it's interesting, I was talking to a friend of mine just the other day, and she said, actually yesterday, and she said, I'm working with these clients and I'm just jumping into problem solving and I'm not getting to root cause. I said, that's okay. She's like, what's wrong with me? She's thinking that she's broken, right? There's something wrong. What's wrong with me? Because we're high achievers. It must be us. We're broken. We're terrible people. No. And she's already shared with me that she's got a lot going on in her life. There's so much and she's stressed. I said, when you're under stress, then you can't access curiosity. It's not accessible to you. So that's why you're just bypassing the root cause analysis and going right into problem solving. There's nothing wrong with you. You're human. Lower the stress level, and you can access curiosity. And Andre corrected me. Yes, not a pessimist, but a optimistic. So originally pessimistic, then shifting to optimism. And really, that's just curiosity, Andre. That's all it is. It's not either pessimistic or optimistic. It's really curiosity. Yeah. So it's really interesting what we do to ourselves. And when we're thinking about focusing on what we want, so coming back to that focusing on what we want, it's important to also use present tense verbs. Again, we're leveraging the brain here, remembering that the brain is very literal. So present tense versus future tense matters quite a bit. And when you're considering what you want in your life and your career, remember how you conceptualize it is very important. So when you're considering your success as a future tense thing, for example, without some sort of deadline, how it arrives in your life could be perpetually delayed. So here's a question for you to consider. How do you phrase what you want? Is it this thing out there, like, oh, I'll be successful at some point in the future? We want to use present tense verbs. And here's some examples of what I've heard. I'll be so relieved when I get another job. How about I look forward to my new job? That's it. Someday I'll be successful. How about I'm grateful for my success? I'm trying better at asking for help. How about I'm asking for help? Because whenever you're trying to do something, you aren't actually doing it. It's like Nike, just do it. So making things present tense helps the brain create the condition you want to experience, which leads me to the power of belief. But before I jump into that, Andre said, so true, words are powerful. Yes, they are very, very powerful. So the power of belief drives that word choice. Your worldview and your self-definition will drive what you receive as well. It will drive how much abundance you allow in your life. And it's interesting, I read a book, and it's been years ago, and it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. And while I'm not a huge fan of his writing style, and also he didn't really it's one of those books that gives you great, theory and then really no practice because he wants you to, pay him to tell you how to do it. By the way, that's not how I wrote my book. It gives you how to do it. Anyway, I digress. The theory was, and I tested it, and unfortunately, it was true. The theory was based on our belief, our worldview, we have a limit on how much success, happiness, abundance, etc. we receive in our lives. And I tested that because once we reach what he called your upper limit. So let's just say, based on your worldview, you have a unconscious cap on how much money you'll accept in your bank account. If you see over so much, then you start going into either a spending spree or some sort of panic attack happens. Then I tested that. I tested that with my husband and I, for example. Do I have an upper limit switch on how much happiness, like relationship happiness, that I have? So I tested it. And it was just an easy test. So I realized that whenever I consciously acknowledged that we were getting along really well, I would find something to get mad about. It's true. It's true. It's so sad. When I consciously realized, wow, we're getting along really well, it wasn't 3 hours before I would find something to get mad about. Self-sabotage. There wasn't anything really to get mad about. It wasn't anything that wasn't already there to begin with. I made it an issue. I tripped the upper limit switch. So based on your worldview and your self-definition will drive what you receive and how you experience your life. That's because your brain is out to prove you right based on your worldview. So if you believe you're unsuccessful, unworthy, or incapable, or what have you, your brain is out to prove you right. It will filter in or out information based on what you focus on and your belief system. And it's one reason why people are so quick to deflect compliments. Just practice saying thank you. It's interesting, and I oftentimes say, people are successful in spite of themselves. It's very, very true. A lot of people struggle with this. They're like, wait, what? Sometimes life, comes in and goes like that train did, and kind of knocks us off our railings, and we have to figure it out. And hopefully, from that, we'll learn something, and we move forward in a great new way. But unless we have that happen, unless we're intentional about intervention, and a train, knocks us off our railings, we just keep down the same path like a train. Toot toot, same crossing, same thing. Same. You have to do different things to expect different results. Okay, so my second question for you, my friends, is how do you see yourself? This is very important. How do you see yourself? If you want to be a leader, for example, do you see yourself that way? If you want to be rich and successful, do you see yourself as rich and successful? Like one of the coaches I coached, she really didn't see herself as a coach. She was an emerging coach, and she was like, oh, I don't know, maybe I'm an advisor. You see yourself as a coach. Yes, you are. Are you coaching? Yes, you're a coach. If you want to be a better person, do you believe you're a good person to start with? Your belief system drives all of your other mental programs. So maybe you can get curious about your beliefs. And if you're not sure where to start there, because a lot of people are like, by now, probably like, what in the world? So there's a lot. Remember, there's a replay available on LinkedIn and YouTube. If you want to come back to any of this, you can come back to it, or just ask me a question. I'm happy to answer it. So if you aren't sure where to start, let's understand that, yes, our worldview developed in childhood. No, this is not necessarily therapy, and we can learn a lot from leveraging the same tools. There's really just root cause analysis, understanding where things evolved from. That's all it is. We make it sound really cool, but that's basically what it is. So what did you hear growing up? What did you see? How do you think that informs your decisions you're making now? Right? What was the worldview of your parents or those people who were influential in your life? And how do you think that's informing your decisions you're making now and how you see the world? Keep in mind, your past informs you. It does not determine you, my friends. That's right. Your past informs you. It does not determine you. On the flip side, what you say will certainly determine your experiences, because your brain believes what you say. You have to be careful because you're listening. So let me know if you have any questions so far, because I've thrown a lot at you. I'll give you an example of how powerful what you say is. There's someone I know and I care for quite a bit that says, I'm poor, to summarize, I'm poor every single time we've been in one another's company. I don't think this person has ever missed an opportunity to reinforce what they don't want. And here's the deal. It doesn't matter if you occasionally talk about your successes, if you are constantly reinforcing the opposite. Be careful what you say, my friends. You are listening. Your brain believes what you say. It doesn't understand sarcasm. It doesn't get that you're just saying something. It doesn't get you that you don't want it. Being intentional is so incredibly important. Intentional speaking starts with what you say to yourself first. For those of you who are public speakers tuning in, intentional speaking starts with what you say to yourself first. So my next question for you is, what do you say to yourself that sabotages you? What unkind things do you say or describe yourself as? Is how you describe your life or your career or yourself, does that align with where you want to go or who you want to be? It's very, very important. And no, don't tell me, well, I can look at like my friend. Oh, I'm looking at my bank account. What's your definition of poor? First of all, I guarantee you that what you're seeing in your bank account is probably a lot more than a lot of people. So be careful what you say to you. I've given you a lot to think about today. And while we're only 30 minutes in, I am contemplating wrapping up the show fairly soon because I know that I've given you a lot in a very short period of time. And if I keep going, it's called information overload. So let me know if you have any questions in the comments, or send me a note either on LinkedIn or at my email at coacheurban@gmail.com. Again, that's coacheurban@gmail.com. Yes, I gave you my email. Ooh, you can also reach me via LinkedIn through messaging or my website at coacheurban.com right here. And before we go, let's discuss hyperplanning, because for those of you tuned in earlier, and you will be curious, perhaps, particularly if you're a project manager, about why hyperplanning actually restricts opportunities. Because as a good planner myself, as a former project manager, I wouldn't say former, actually, I still do a lot of project management now. Everything needs a good plan, right? I mean, that's what we've been taught. That's what we've been told. Let's face it, we've been trained to plan everything, and we feel guilty if we don't have a 3 to 5 year plan in our careers, which is one of the silliest interview questions ever. But regardless, we all feel like we should have a plan with a capital P. And some of us like to overplan. Here's where that traps us. When you hyperplan, you restrict opportunities. Remember, your brain is highly advanced at filtering information based on your priorities. So if you have a tight plan, you're left less room for unlooked for opportunities. Make sense? It's very arrogant to believe that you can predict every possible variable. That's not possible. Okay. Andre said, thank you. Thank you very much. First time listening. You provided great information. I really appreciate that, Andre. I really appreciate that. And, again, any of you tuning in either now or later, watching the replay, let me know if you have any questions. Send me a note. If it's personal, you don't want to share, or pop a comment on the show notes. Of course, I'll be notified and I'll see that. But again, hyperplanning is very useful if you want to put a rocket on the moon or do heart surgery, right? In those instances, you do want it to go a certain way, right? And no variance. But when it comes to personal and professional success, it does more harm than good. Realizing this took me by massive surprise. I'll be serious with you. When that hit, it was literally an epiphany. I was sitting right here at this desk, and I was looking at that lamp right there, which you can't see. And it just hit me. And I was like, oh. That was literally my response. I love a good plan. And it really, it was hit home because I started thinking about, okay, I was like, wait a minute. Let me think about this. Okay, I used my vacations as one data point. I was like, okay, let's think about this. And I thought about all the vacations I've ever done and the differences between the ones that I really enjoyed and the ones that were okay, but maybe not as enjoyable. You know what the difference was? Hyper planning. The vacations that I planned that were here on this day, we did this, and we did. It's exhausting. No, there was no room for being, just in the moment or waking up this day, I think I'd really like to go do this. There was no room for that. So it was very stressful, actually. I mean, a great way to stress out your vacation is hyperplanning. There wasn't any room for opportunities. There wasn't any room to adapt and go with the flow. It was all this. No, of course it wasn't. Very enjoyable. So now I've learned, fortunately, and I have an idea. I go to a place, I kind of look around and go, okay, there's stuff to do, and that's it. That's it. We just show up and we have fun. It's great. So the best tactic when it comes to, particularly when you're thinking about your personal success, is to have a goal, an idea. You have to have a goal and a general idea where you want to go. That's important. A lot of people don't, and they try to go, well, I like to be more successful. Okay. What does that look like and feel like? Let's get a concept of that. We don't have to have it nailed down. Like, it doesn't have to be, well, in this job, in this profession, I have to look this way. No, that's irrelevant information by a great degree. Because again, it's very arrogant to think that you know all things and you can see all possible. It's not possible, because we live in the universe of the infinite possibilities. And when you hyperplan, you restrict those possibilities. because your brain will filter in or out information based on what you have defined. So open up your definitions, right? The key to, you need to know the key influencing elements for sure, but making room for abundance is absolutely critical. You have to have space. So that's my last tidbit for you today, my friends. And I hope you've enjoyed the More Impact Summer Series. If you're just tuning in now, know that the replays, the previous 2 series, are always available on either LinkedIn and or YouTube. And all this whole series was designed to unlock your fullest potential by sharing what they've never told you about the power of your brain and how to wire your brain for success. And it's my passion to help you create success on your terms, my friends. So those are interested in discovering how this and other neuroleadership school tools and professional success tactics will help you and or your teams thrive at a higher level, reach out. I do workshops, one-on-one coaching to help you create success on your terms. Again, it's always a pleasure to see you, my friends. Great to see all of you that are tuning in live. It's been a lot of fun, and I really, really appreciate you showing up and sharing your insights and your curiosity. Until next time, my friends, keep elevating. Bye for now.